Okay, everyone, thank you so much for being with us this evening. My name is Brian Mariani, and I manage the Center for Functional Nutrition. We're delighted that you are with us tonight, and we'll be sharing with you the Redox breakthrough. Now, for some of you, this may be your first look into this breakthrough health science of redox technology. I certainly remember the first time this was introduced to me about 10 years ago. And, in the position of managing the Center for Functional Nutrition, I felt like I was, on the cutting edge of what was out there. So this was very interesting, certainly opened my eyes. And I did look at this with an open and curious mind, because it is my mission and the purpose of our business to better people's lives and be a force for good in the world. So when I started to take a deeper look and connect the dots, this really started to make sense to me. So for those of you out there that this might be a first look, I would just invite you, as I once did, to just have an open and a curious mind. We're absolutely delighted to be able to share with you tonight Russell Mariani. He is the founder of the Center for Functional Nutrition, and he has been impacting people's lives around the world based on the principles of health for over 40 years. And we also have Dr. Robertson Ward, who is the leading mind today on the planet when it comes to this redox technology. He's an absolutely brilliant human and also a wonderful human, and you'll get to hear directly from him tonight. So without further ado, thank you everyone for being here, and I will pass it over to Russell, and you can get started. Russell is going to introduce himself. He's going to introduce Dr. Ward. They're going to have a very insightful conversation. And I invite anyone on this presentation tonight, if you have any questions, please do direct message me in the chat. I'll be monitoring that throughout the call, and I will ask those questions. We're going to have an open Q&A, so we will open that up. So please ask your questions, send me a direct message in the chat. Those questions will get answered, and we look forward to your participation. So without further ado, I am going to pass this over to you, Russell, and Dr. Ward.
Thank you, Brian. And thanks everybody for being here tonight. I'm very excited to introduce my dear friend and colleague, Dr. Rob Ward. And I do want to share a little kind of formal introduction, and then we'll get to our interview. So Dr. Robertson Ward is a family physician with advanced training in functional medicine. He received his medical degree from the University of Illinois, Abraham Lincoln School of Medicine in Chicago. His residency in family medicine was completed in 1984 at the University of Cincinnati. Since then, he has practiced integrative medicine in Kentucky and in Utah. Until December 2019, he operated a solo functional medical clinic in Provo, Utah, was a staff physician for Central Valley Medical Center in Santaquin, Utah. Dr. Ward has served as an independent scientific consultant for the ASEA Corporation since 2015. He teaches the science of redox biochemistry through various venues, which include one of our favorite websites, theredoxdoc.com, and through his recently published book, Healthy Cells, Healthy Life. Dr. Ward has served as the lead physician on 15 clinical trials and enjoys exploring the world of science as he continues to learn more about the interaction between our biology and our capacity to fully express our genetic potential. He retired from active medical practice in December 2019, but continues to serve as a medical consultant, researcher, and educator. He plans to write more books in the area of functional medicine and redox signaling biology. Dr. Ward lives in Provo, Utah with his wife, Diane. They're both avid gardeners and find great joy in growing as much food as possible with what they eat at home. So welcome, Dr. Ward, and thanks so much for being with us tonight. Thanks for your amazing pioneering work in this area of redox signaling science. And most importantly, thank you for helping so many non-science people, non-science types, understand the fundamentals of this extraordinary breakthrough. So, the very first question I have for you tonight, Dr. Ward, is, now, sorry, I just want, Brian kind of set it up, but we do have guests tonight. We also have people at various stages of their ASEA journey, some people who are just starting to put these molecules to work in their own body in the last few weeks, in the last month or two. And I can tell from seeing some of the people on here tonight with us that there's some people who've been enjoying these benefits from these amazing molecules for 10 years or more. So just keep that in mind as we address our questions and answers tonight. But the very first question would be as simply, what are redox signaling molecules? Why are they so important? And what role do they play in our body, in our physiology? And could you connect that to this whole idea of more fully expressing our genetic potential? So there we go. Dr. Ward.
Well, Russell, that's a complicated question. Multifaceted, but it sounds kind of complicated at first, molecules and genetic potential and things like that. But it really isn't that complex. So let me just start by talking about redox molecules. These are tiny molecules that are made inside our cells, and they're made during the process of creating energy, and they're a natural product of that process. The mitochondria in our cells make energy, and they convert food into ATP, energy. So that's where these molecules come to life. Now, they don't live for very long. They're very bioactive. They're desperate to donate or accept an electron. And so they're used to complete chemical reactions in every corner of our body. They live and die, or they finish their job within milliseconds. And they're manufactured millions at a time within a second. So as you can probably guess, they're really important to us. Without them, we perish. So nature has set this up so that when they're produced properly, in the right amounts and the right balance, our physiology is like turned on like a switch. And we operate in homeostasis or balance. If we have disease or an infection or some problem, these molecules are not in balance, and our body is trying or driven to recreate the balance. So something kind of miraculous happened in the discovery of this technology, and we were able to consume these molecules in a stabilized state, in a balanced form, in a liquid or as a topical. And most biochemists would say, that's impossible. And
Oop.
my first reaction, how could that be? And so it's true. And when we have this native resource for our body, we know what to do with these molecules. We put them to work where we need them, and our body innately knows how to do that. So it's very exciting to have this resource. And once you get cells out of a state of kind of half sick, where they're limping along, not enough balance to really do their job. Let's say it's a thyroid cell, can't produce thyroxine. That's a problem. And so, sure enough, once that balance is restored, the cell begins to do its job.
Beautiful. And did your video? No, you're good. You're good. So that's a very clear, simple explanation of what redox signaling molecules are and what they do. They basically help every function inside of our physiology, every chemical reaction, every biochemical reaction is supported by these molecules. And if they're out of balance, then we have problems. But if we can put them back into balance, those problems can be corrected. And that is a very significant thing. So when you look at your own personal experience, Dr. Ward, going back 10 years when you were first introduced to this breakthrough technology, what are some of the things that got your attention? What got your attention? How did you get interested? And then what were some of your own personal experiences?
What I think got my attention was that there was nothing ever in my experience as a physician and a researcher, nothing ever that was in this category of science. I mean, when I was in college, we learned about redox molecules as just kind of a byproduct of the Krebs cycle. We had no idea they were so important. And this field of science has evolved over about 20 years. And so, once we started to understand that even the first reaction of our immune system, let's say you're exposed to a virus, the first thing we do is we send white blood cells to where the virus has invaded. Well, how did they know to get there? They were signaled. These signaling molecules call the immune system into action. That's called an oxidative burst. And it is critical in our ability to adapt and adjust and survive in the world. It's part of our biology. So a friend gave me some ASEA, and I thought, well, this is interesting. It's certainly safe. And I started drinking it. Within 2 weeks, a joint in my foot that had been hurting since I was in high school from an athletic injury that I'd already had surgery on, and was already taking some supplements to help with the inflammation, but it always hurt. I lived with it. And that was my paradigm. Drinking the ASEA, well, within 2 weeks, I noticed that it just didn't hurt. And it still looked weird because it had some inflammation in it, but it didn't hurt. And that got my attention. And I just was intrigued. And I just had this feeling that we were onto something. And so I went to Salt Lake to get my questions answered by the officials and the scientists at the company. And I was thoroughly excited. That's where it started.
Beautiful. So you have had a bird's eye view for the last 10 years, and I know outside of your own personal experiences, which have been many and varied, you have witnessed many people, many hundreds of people, no doubt many thousands of people benefiting from these amazing molecules. So I'm sure that our audience would love to hear one or two of your favorite ASEA stories that happened with other people that you knew. So can you share one or two of those with us?
Okay, so probably the most tender experience I've had is witnessing children who have very significant health problems that are considered by conventional science to be a lifelong problem. And for some reason, then, this is probably at least 5 years ago, within weeks, I saw one child in particular who had from birth significant limitations in his ability to maintain proper blood sugar levels, and also he had some intellectual capacity issues. And within just a few weeks, there was a significant change, and I witnessed this. And at the time, I didn't understand how that could be. But in 2016, there was a significant scientific discovery, which I'll talk about in a second, and it accounted for this. So in my mind, I thought, well, this has to do something with the underlying genetic makeup of human beings. It has to be plastic, has to be moldable. And this kid just did great, and the parents were thrilled. And to think that he was going to be able to live a much more productive life. But what happened in 2016, Russell, is there was a study in the New England Journal of Medicine that was published. The scientific team that did the study looked at 50,000 subjects. They looked at their medical record from various long-term studies, and they wanted to see if lifestyle would affect outcome in human beings. And they looked at cardiovascular disease, because we know there are genes, we know which genes code for this. And so they broke the group down into different strata. The group that had 100% of those genes that code for heart disease, within 10 years in that study, about 90% of them had bypass surgery, they had a stent placed, or they already had a heart attack. Very tragic. And then they said, well, let's break out this group, and let's see if people were not overweight, didn't smoke, ate a healthy diet, and exercised regularly, if they would change the outcome. And in fact, it did. But it was huge. 46% reduction in the heart events over a 10-year period. And it turned out that people who had fewer of those genes also had a similar reduction in risk. So this is the first time that it was proved without a shadow of a doubt, looking at 50,000 subjects, that lifestyle mitigates heart disease, the #1 killer. And this is where all of the health and wellness programs that large corporations have put together, they've invested big bucks because there's big returns. So for us, with this new technology, we know that if we can provide resources to the body to better allow for this expression of our genes, the adaptive genes, that we can really change this curve. And 95% of our DNA has switches, 5% is fixed. And there's about 20,000 genes that code for proteins that have this huge impact in our health. So we don't have to just live with it. We can actually adapt and evolve very quickly if we put all the pieces into place. Now, I know that part of the reason my toe felt better was because I was already doing some things to empower my body. It was just missing a few critical pieces, some molecules. So that I think accounted for the fact that I had a pretty prompt shift. So there you go.
All right, very good. So that definitely leads to the next logical question, which is, okay, I get it, what redox signaling molecules are, and they affect our genetic potential, and they help everything work better. So if I'm about to get started on this wonderful redox journey, how much should I take? How many ounces should I take? And is there any scientific justification for starting with a certain amount and possibly increasing to another amount? So would you like to address that whole issue?
Well,
in some?
It's not as scientific as you think, but I think our own intuition can guide us. So I tell people, Drink about 4 ounces of ASEA twice a day, and do that for a week or two. And if you feel a shift in your health, like better sleep, and not just like details about your sleep, if you notice less aches and pains, better energy levels, mental clarity, better digestive health, then you've had a response, and you should continue to drink that amount. But if it doesn't shift, then drink a little more. Maybe go to 6 ounces twice a day, and just ramp it up over about a week at a time. And I know people who have a huge shift in their health after 90 days. So it's a little bit mysterious, but I trust that our bodies are hard at work, working on a to-do list. And sometimes what we want isn't exactly what the body thinks needs to happen. So benchmarking your health parameters with somebody that you trust who's perhaps introduced you to the product would be very smart, and talk about details. Not everybody wants to talk about their digestive health to just anybody, but it might come in handy. And but over a period of 90 days or so, you should feel a shift. And it's a little tricky too, Russell, because our old familiar healthy self is just like that. It's familiar. We don't always recognize our old self because it's like just the way we've been. So sometimes these subtle changes are profound but hard to just, oh yeah, that toe doesn't hurt anymore. You know, you don't think about it because it's not sore. If it's sore, you think about it.
Yeah, it's a very good point. Some of the changes are subtle. Sometimes people get dramatic changes or shifts, and everybody prefers those, but sometimes the most important shifts are happening and we're not really noticing. So we all agree with benchmarking on a weekly basis with the person typically who has introduced you is a very good idea. Now, you mentioned 90 days, so I wanted to give you an opportunity to talk about the life cycle of cells. Most people know that our health depends on the health of our cells, but I think a lot of people don't quite know that there's a life cycle, that every cell of our body lives for a certain period of time and then replicates into 2 new cells. And this is part of the reason why we want to give it time, because depending on the number of damaged cells that we have when we begin, that there just is a certain organic process. So we just have to give our body the right amount of time, and then we can see these amazing things. So just talk a little bit about that, the life cycle of cells and how redox molecules affect that.
So our cells replicate rather quickly. So why don't we see changes that quickly? Well, the reason is that even though the cell might be replicating, the raw materials that the cell is made up of may not be in the proper balance. So the atoms that make up our cells is really the critical issue. And so our recycling of our body, we're not the same thing every 3 years. There's not an atom in my body that was there 3 years ago. We know this through carbon dating and scientific studies. So where'd they go and where'd they come from? Well, it's mostly based upon what you breathe, what you drink, and what you eat. And of course, you're exposed to toxins and different things, and that could be an issue. So our skin cells replace themselves anatomically about every month. Our gut lining replicates about every 3 to 4 days. Our bones take about 90 days to change over the atoms. Our liver and some other internal organs, maybe 6 weeks. The nervous system is the stickler, and it can take years to recycle those atoms. And it's based upon sophistication. Our brain and nerve cells are very sophisticated in their function. And because of that, we lose, that's the benefit. The downside is they're susceptible to toxins. They take a long time to repair. So we sacrifice that in lieu of their amazing functions. So that's part of the issue. We just need to hydrate our body while we're healing and repairing, and eat as clean as we can, and protect ourselves from toxins, medications, and various things that are preservatives and things like that in our foods.
Very good, very good. So we know that the healing process happens better when we introduce these molecules, because the molecules are making the cells more efficient. All the different tasks, all the different jobs that a cell does, taking in oxygen, taking in nutrients, metabolizing them, producing enzymes and hormones, detecting damage, repairing damage, and detoxifying. So many people seem to focus, I think, too much on detoxification, but we know that all these other things are happening at the same time. So talk about what medically is called the Herxheimer response, but really is just the body healing itself and shifting and making these changes. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so we do, as we heal, there's a restructuring going on, but there really is a release of crud, things that sludge and different things that builds up in the lining of our intestine, in the interstitial tissues, in our joints, and so forth. Well, how do those things get away? How do they get out? Well, they'll leave through our breath. And I've had some amazing experiences with people complaining about their breath while they're drinking a Sia, or the taste, or whatever. And it is just astonishing what our body can do. We lose toxin through our skin, and it can cause eruptions in our skin and look weird for a while. It's okay. It's just part of nature. Most of our toxins leave through our gut, if our gut is not terribly inflamed. And so this is where hydration is critical. Well, what does that mean? That means drinking between 2 and 3 liters of good water every day. And it opens the doors for healing. And it helps, you can think of it like flushing out, but it aids our digestion, and it aids in the ability to avoid recycling some of these toxins back through the intestinal wall, right back to the liver, and creating what can be sometimes some discomfort in people. They can feel fluey and things like that. But hydration usually takes care of that. And I encourage people to hydrate before that sort of stuff might happen. How often does it happen? Rarely. It's 2 to 5% of the time, perhaps.
Okay, very good.
And one last thing, Russell.
Sure.
When I hear people having some kind of a detoxification experience, I'd almost jump out of my chair, because I'm going, yeah, your body's got it. It's got strength and power to get well, and it's desiring to move. It's moving a little quick. So what do? Let's slow it down. Let's just decrease your dosage a little bit of the ASEA, or adjust the lifestyle.
Very good. So that brings us to the whole issue of contraindications. Are there any contraindications? And what about people who take medication? Are there any concerns about that?
Well, in my experience, I have never seen a reaction between adding these native molecules to our body and a medication, because they are native to us. And it's possible that as you consume ASEA, that there may be adjustments required. So consult with your doctor. It's a great thing to do. And most doctors will say, gee, these are just molecules, no big deal. And but you may want to request, or the doctor may suggest, well, gee, you're looking great, your skin's looking good. Let's do some tests to see if you still need the same amount of medicine. You may not. And but it won't adversely affect your health. The other thing is, medical conditions. There are no medical conditions, or no common medical conditions I know of, that would be contraindicated. to using this technology. Now that isn't true for botanicals, other nutritional supplements. This is in its own category of science. And because of that, and because we make these molecules in our cells anyway, there's, just, it's a slam dunk for our health. But, but if anyone has concerns, they should certainly talk to their doctor.
Very good. Dr. Ward, so we would all like to give you the opportunity to gaze into the future, gaze into this crystal ball of our collective futures, knowing what you know, knowing what you've learned in the last 10 years about redox biology and redox signaling science. Give us a glimpse of what we can all expect as we learn more about this and have additional discoveries into this wonderful world of redox.
Well, the real blessing that I see is that the founders of this technology made it available to the average person. So it's not been sold to a pharmaceutical company to do a specific indication for a certain medical condition. They felt that it would be far more advisable to just let it out to the world. And as we all contemplate what's possible, many times people are stuck in their paradigm of what's true. I certainly was 10 years ago. And as I thought and asked questions and then witnessed change in people, my patients, myself, the possibilities were very exciting. So this product is, all over the world now. And as time passes, as the collective wisdom of this group of people using this product grows, it will be generally much more accepted as, oh yeah, redox. Yeah, that's good stuff. And I think that the world will just simply, from a grassroots sort of perspective, experience the truth of this technology. And, the ASEA company is committed to continue to do research and science, which is fun and helpful. The genetic study done in Utah was very exciting and proved the way it changes our genetic expression at a scientific level. So I think this will be a household word, kind of like Kleenex instead of tissue. And I think that people will, it will be hard not to discuss this at every opportunity as we interact with people. There's nothing more precious than health. And it's what the average person talks about with their family and how you been and stuff like that. To have some hope in a bottle is pretty amazing.
Agreed. Very well said. So this pretty much wraps up our interview questions. But before we go to Brian to see what questions have come in from the audience during the interview, we want to give you an opportunity to talk a little bit about the Redox Doc website and any other projects that you're working on.
Okay. So the Redox Doc website is been up and running since 2015. It's in the midst of getting some updates. And this year I'll be making some more contributions to the sort of scientific prowess of the ASEA product. And I'm excited about that. My book, Healthy Cells, Healthy Life, continues to be a really good tool. If you're involved in sharing ASEA with people, it may be a little daunting to think, well, gee, I got to be able to explain what these molecules are. Well, you don't. You just need to share your experience of how they've helped you. And then if people have questions, refer to a tool, the website, the book, something. Maybe another person who can share a similar experience that they've had. But try not to be an expert. It's a little hard, and sometimes it's a little intimidating to the person you're talking to if you sound like an expert. So just, toss that over to the side and say, if you want some science, I know somebody that you can read some stuff about or watch some videos, that sort of thing.
Very good. Excellent. So, Brian, would you like to come back in and let us ask Dr. Ward any questions that came in through the chat?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Dr. Ward and Russell, for facilitating. Those were excellent questions, I'm sure, on the minds of many people here, and just really valuable and insightful answers, Dr. Ward. Yeah, it's been really exciting here. We've had a lot of questions coming in, and one of the questions that came in first, right after where you were talking, Dr. Ward, about that study, the scientific study that was done that basically confirmed without a shadow of a doubt that really movement is something that we can say scientifically is going to help prevent heart disease and things like that. So one of the questions that came in was, well, if we know that's true, what can athletes expect? What can healthy people expect? Is this something that a healthy person could get benefits from? Is this something that an athlete could get better results? Kind of like that.
Yeah. Okay. So that's a very good question. Do I need to drink ASEA if I feel very healthy and well and I'm living a healthy lifestyle? The answer is absolutely. So the trick to life is to age in balance. We're all going to age. And about every decade, we lose 10% of our mitochondria. And the efficiency of our mitochondria decline by 10% as well. It's just the way it is. So if we want to age in balance, the trick is to make sure we stay in homeostasis metabolically and at a molecular level. And that's where ASEA comes in. So an athlete, athletically, I know that in days when I was running marathons, I know that as I drank ASEA, I recovered from my workouts more efficiently, and I wasn't as sore, and I was able to train more often. And that led to better times and, fewer strains and sprains and all that stuff. So I think there's every reason to say that everyone can benefit from drinking ASEA. And it's not just about the problems we have. It's about staying well and aging in balance.
Yeah, brilliant. Aging in balance. I think that's something that, even at 30 years old, I can start to see would be quite delightful. So I appreciate that, Dr. Ward. Another question that came in was around, it was really a usage question in terms of, this is scientific, this is a technology, and you talked a lot about how it doesn't interfere with medication. In fact, it's going to enhance any of the good things that you're doing. So what does it look like in terms of how does it absorb into the body, or when should you take it, things like that?
Okay, so yeah, in general, we recommend people drink ASEA twice a day at least, but you can drink it more oftenly. And it is best absorbed when your stomach is not full of food. So it takes about a half hour for your food to empty from your stomach. So I just tell people drink it before your meals, maybe 10, 15 minutes, and it will be absorbed into your body. We really don't know from person to person how long it persists in your system. But these molecules are stable until they interact with molecules within your body, and they will travel in your bloodstream and then go to a destination and be used. Now, some people say, well, wait a minute, what if I'm taking too much? Is there harm? The absolute answer is completely not. These molecules will naturally convert back to where they came from. And so they convert into a kind of a saline in water if they're not used, if you don't need them, for example. So, and for those that have concerns about sodium content and things like that, 4 ounces of ASEA has the same sodium content as a slice of bread. So really, it's safe for people even who have sodium restrictions.
Got it. Yeah, thank you, Dr. Ward. That's really clear. And I think this next question, it actually follows up really nicely on what you were saying, and that's that, you know, the question was really around, well, this was someone who is checking this out for the first time, and their question was, well, if this just goes into my body and, you know, it's just going to do what it's supposed to do, I can't really direct it. You know, is there anything possible that we can do to kind of direct it? And I think to move the question is really to say, well, there was this new discovery of putting the redox molecules in a gel. So maybe you could just speak to how we can really direct the show of where these molecules go.
Yeah, so if you have a particular challenge that in a part of your body, you can apply the product directly there with the ASEA gel, and it will easily assimilate in the skin and travel in the tissues and work in that region of your body. In addition to that, I would also be drinking the ASEA. And the ASEA Redox, when we drink it, the answer to the question is really, we do direct this, but we don't know it. We don't have to. It's in our biology to know where we need to heal. And for example, there's a corollary to nutrition. So if you're eating survival foods, foods that we call comfort foods, that slow our metabolism, we think, well, potatoes, bread, pasta, things like that, those foods grow certain bacteria in our gut. Those bacteria produce certain fatty acids that alter our genetic expression to slow our physiology to help us survive the winter or a famine. We can get by on very few calories. Did we have to think about that? No. Intuitively, we're drawn to those foods when we're in a crisis. But it happens, and it's brilliant, and it's in our biology, it's in our DNA, it's been programmed for millions of years, and it's just the greatest blessing. So we know how to heal. We know how to direct this. It's just innately happening.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you, Dr. Ward. So there were a number of other questions, but I think for the sake of all of our time tonight, we'll end the formal part of our presentation and our sharing here. And I just want to say to everyone who is with us tonight, wherever you are in your discovery process with Redox, we welcome you wherever that is for you. And we hope that this was a step in the direction of learning or growth for you. And just be curious and be open to this being something that is real, that is working. It's doing that work all around the world. And here we have Dr. Rob Ward, we have Russell Mariani, 2 practitioners who've dedicated their entire lives to the health and well-being of many, many people, including their patients and clients. And we just hope that there was something here tonight that maybe caught your attention. And we'll invite you to continue this discovery, have another conversation, speak to the person that invited you here tonight, because they do care very much for you. So thank you all for being with us tonight. Thank you, Dr. Ward. Thank you, Russell. And what we'll do now is just open this up. The formal piece is done. And if there's anyone who has a comment or a question, Russell and Dr. Ward have agreed to stay on a few extra minutes here. So if you have a comment or a question, just raise your hand, unmute yourself, give me a wave, and I'll be happy to unmute you. All right. So I know that we do have a special message here from one of our dear friends, Beth Wofford, and she is waving at me right now. So Beth, I'm going to unmute you and I'll let you share. Just give me 1 second here. Where are you?
She's there, Brian.
Oh, there you are. Yeah, go for it. Thank you, Beth.
Sure. I just want to know from, Rob and I have been on this journey together for almost, I think maybe you found ASEA, what, 3 or 4 weeks before you shared it with me. So we've been together for a long, long time. And not only that, we've been dear friends for much longer, over 20 years now. And I would just like everyone to wish Dr. Ward happy birthday. He's having a big birthday on Saturday.
Happy birthday, Dr. Ward.
Yeah, it's number 65.
Big milestone.
Yeah,
Thank you so much,
just a little behind Russell.
Yeah. I'm older than Dr. Ward by a couple of months there.
I like to rub it in.
Yeah. We'll celebrate together for sure. Thanks, Beth.
Awesome.
Thank
you so much, Beth. I see Mary Margaret. I just unmuted you. Go for it.
Thank you, Brian, and thank you, Dr. Ward, for all that you shared. I just appreciate all that. And I just have kind of a twofold question.
Okay.
I'd like for you to speak about taking it, the importance of maybe swishing it around in your mouth for a certain amount of time before swallowing it for maximum absorption. And then I'd like for you to speak about why it tastes different to different individuals.
Oh, that's a good couple of questions. So many dentists and hygienists have told me over time that the noticeable benefits for people's oral health who drink ASEA. I personally had transformational changes there too. I spent most of my, from the age 9 until I started drinking ASEA, I had lots of cold sores that would come and go. And within about 90 days, maybe a little longer, of drinking ASEA, I wasn't plagued with that anymore. And what a welcome blessing. So you can swish for maybe 30 seconds, doesn't take long, and then swallow. And you'll get, sublingual and absorption through the cheek and so forth. Now, the flavor. That is a lot of fun, and it's funny because this is something that is very, very intriguing, and the mystery is kind of goes like this. When we taste ASEA, most of the flavor is not from our tongue. Our tongue has just very limited flavors that it senses: salt, bitter, sweet, and sour. And but there's other flavors that you can actually taste as you drink ASEA, depending on who you are. So some people have a genetic predisposition to have more oxidative stress in their bodies. It's kind of like rust, and our cells get kind of rusty. And my observation over 10 years has been that people with a little more oxidative stress will tend to taste a chlorine-like flavor in ASEA or pool water. And then as they continue to drink it, the interesting thing is it goes away and it becomes very bland. But should you have a problem with your health, get sick with a virus or something, the flavor may return back to its original pool water until you restore balance, get over the illness or what have you. Some people taste other flavors. Some people taste kind of a almost a peroxide, a hydrogen peroxide flavor, and they tend to, or it's just awful. They don't know how to describe it, but it just kind of tastes awful. And of course, that goes away as they drink. And those people are a little bit more prone to inflammation in their body as opposed to oxidative stress. Both conditions, inflammation and oxidative stress, are cousins, but they're a little different. And because of that, the rate at which you can increase your amounts varies. So if you taste the pool water, please be, if you want to, be aggressive with how much you drink. Drink it up, and eventually that pool water taste gets better. But if you taste other weird flavors, you may want to take it a little slower, advance more gently, and your body will need just a little bit more time. So people who tend to have sneezing and wheezing or unusual joint inflammation issues that are different than the wear and tear that we get with aging, may want to go a little more gently and be sure and hydrate. But it'll all just work out because this technology is, like I said, native to our body, and our body will never do anything to cause harm to us. You cannot, your body will not hurt you. And it's in our biology to heal, but it just takes a little time.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
That was such a good question, Mary Margaret. Thank you. Just perfect. And Dr. Ward, excellent. Anyone else out there with a question or a comment? All right, I got iPhone. I don't know who iPhone is, but I'm going to unmute you.
That's us. Sorry, we didn't realize our name wasn't on there, Brian. This is Hank and Kathleen.
Hi, Hank and Kathleen.
Hi.
Go for it. Thanks for being here.
Sure, thank you.
Thank you.
We've had a couple of people take it that have blood pressure issues, and they said that the blood pressure went up quite a bit and scared them when they drank it.
Yeah, that's always a little daunting and frightening. And it does rarely, but occasionally happen. And the reason that this happens is that their bodies are detoxifying, and this detoxification reaction activates sort of a survival instinct in our body, and we almost turn into kind of a fight or flight a little bit. The body's going, whoa, where did those toxins come from all of a sudden? And I'm not getting rid of them. And so it has the appearance for the body of some sort of adaptive stress. And so our natural reaction to stress is to increase our pulse and increase our blood pressure. And the purpose is to help us deal with that problem. And the increased blood pressure will help push toxins through the body, and it's kind of like a heightened state of alertness for our body. So the solution is to say, okay, this has happened. There's a detoxification process that is being presented, and you just need to deal with it. And the way you deal with it is hydration and a little more gentle approach. These are people, like I mentioned, who have oxidative stress. They may have hardening of the arteries that is a result of that rust in the body. And so they're just gentle. They just need to take a gentler approach. They're sensitive to the healing benefits, and they just need to take time. And just to reassure them that this does happen, it's not a dangerous thing. If they went outside and took a jog, their blood pressure goes up too, their heart rate goes up too, and then it comes back down. And so it is not a bad thing. If I went out and were to run, I used to run about 5 miles 3 to 4 times a week. During my run, my blood pressure would be 220 over 110. That is a normal response. And then when I come to rest, it comes right back to 120 over 80 or less.
Thank you. That's a great explanation.
Thank you.
You bet.
Thank you so much for that wonderful question and great answer there, Dr. Ward. Anyone else with a question? We can also open up for any comment if anyone would like to make one at this point. I'm just looking.
I have a question.
Oh, there we go. Yes, go for it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
When you started talking about blood pressure, I've been on ASEA for a little over a year, and prior to my going on it, my blood pressure was average 120 over 80. Now it runs about 150 over 76. I put on a lot of weight since I've been on it also. I was out of country for 9 years, and when I got back, I went to all the restaurants I'd missed.
Good for you.
All that. But is that due to ASEA or just the extra weight?
Yeah, so in general, our body doesn't really enjoy having extra weight. And it will oftentimes lead to a rise in your systolic blood pressure, the top number, like you've described, 150.
Mhm.
So it is in general, my experience has been that people who are drinking the ASEA product and even using the topical gel will have a normalization of their weight. If they're underweight, they kind of come up, and it just everything kind of comes to homeostasis. So my suggestion for you would be to do an experiment, and for 30 days, take out foods that slow your metabolism. So sugar, bread, pasta, and white potatoes. Just do the experiment and eat plenty of vegetables and fruits. Lean meats are fine, and you can have sweet potatoes, but modify your diet and see if you don't notice that your body weight, health, and so forth normalize, and your body will appreciate it.
Okay, everything I like.
Awesome.
Yeah. I get that.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
I'll try that.
Yeah, thank you so much for your question. And we are at the bottom of the hour, everyone. And I'm really glad that, we had a number of questions continue to come in there. And we've had a very full opportunity to hear from you, Dr. Ward, to have questions. Of course, Russell facilitated an excellent Q&A earlier. And to finish everything up, as we said earlier, just thank you all for being here this evening and for joining us in this conversation about this breakthrough redox technology. This is something very significant, and we're very grateful that you were curious enough to join us tonight. And to everyone out there, have a wonderful evening. Thank you for being here. And I'm going to unmute everyone if you'd like to just say a quick hello and goodbye. But from all of us, good night.
Hey, Rob.
Bye.
Okay, good night.
Good night. Good night, everyone.
Everybody,
Yes,
thanks so
thank you,
much.
Rob, and good night
Happy
and happy
birthday,
birthday.
Brian Mariani. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Oh,
Thank you,
yes.
Rob.
Birthday.
Happy birthday, Miss Dr. Ward.
Thank you so
Okay.
much. Happy birthday.
Thank you, everybody.
Okay.